Nice, Mario. Yours is way better than mine. That's what I was looking for. This is the best I have. Cool. So we have a small agenda as always, and we've left it blank again on purpose. We always do this. The idea being, if you have ideas, we want you to put them in the doc. I'll go ahead and link the doc in chat if you hadn't seen it on the Slack channel, but I'll put it in chat here as well. Yeah, feel free to add anything to the agenda, and we'll just kind of go down the list and address as much as possible in the time period. You're also welcome to just kind of unmute and ask questions. This group is small enough; it can be, it can be a casual chat. This is not necessarily like a rehearsed presentation. It's just kind of an opportunity to talk about Tempo with people who are using it, who have questions about it, etc. So don't hesitate to jump in and give, or talk about whatever you need to. But I think I have our internal agenda somewhere here. We'll start with, we have a new maintainer who's not on the call. What happened to Zach? Is he off today? Did he have a day off? Do we know?
Yeah, it's today and tomorrow off.
Dang it, Zach. All right, that's cool. Zach Leslie is our latest maintainer. We just put up a vote yesterday and merged it today, and he's done a lot of work, particularly in like our automated testing areas, as well as some work on Tempo and helping us set up clusters and doing a lot of these things. So Zach is, congratulations, Zach, wherever you are. Maybe you'll watch this video at some point. Cool. Talk a little about 1.3. Oh, and 1.2.1. So since our last call, I think we've cut 1.2.1. We had a bug where compactors were failing to move through empty objects, which we haven't totally got to the bottom of. It's not too concerning. These objects, although they exist, don't really hurt anything. And so we pushed a PR that basically fixes this so compactors work. And that was in 1.2. And this fix will just make compactors not fail constantly. And Marty put that together, I think. Is the changelog done for this? I think we realized this morning the changelog exists.
Yeah, I just pushed it a few minutes ago, so we'll have to click it.
Oh, it's not merged. Oh, it's not merged. Okay. We'll merge this after this call, and then I'll link the changelog here. It's just one line for the bug fix, basically. Also, Tempo 1.3. So talk about that a little bit coming up. We really kind of want to do a little bit shorter of a cycle, but with the holidays, it's just hard to get everybody on the same page. So Tempo 1.3 will be coming in January after kind of the holiday period. The big thing there will be full backend search merged. We will have the ability for the queryers to do this work, as well as a way to build like a serverless architecture to do this. So we will be doing this in Google Cloud initially. So the Google Cloud Function stuff will all be documented, and there'll be the code to do that. And eventually we'll of course build Azure and AWS options for that as well. We operate Tempo in all of 3 of those cloud providers, so we'll need to get them all eventually. But I think at release of 1.3, it will be available for Google Cloud only, or at least it will be obvious how to do it in Google Cloud only. You could probably wrangle it into the other ones if you had the time, but we'll document it all eventually. We're not really sure what the costs will be at our scale. We ingest, I think, 600 to 700 megasecond right now. And there's still some questions in the air of what it costs to just, pile through all this data and brute force it. We will not be dropping the experimental flag due to some of this. Like, the idea is we're going to build this massive paralleled architecture to scan traces and find matching, traces matching certain criteria, and then start piling on improvements. And once we feel it's reached, a kind of fair breakpoint in terms of like cost to query, then we'll drop the experimental label and we will make it, a supported part of Tempo proper. So it's kind of up in the air for us. We're going to be releasing this on Grafana Cloud, no matter what it costs, basically, unless it's way more than I expect. But it might be it might be prohibitive for some other people with their open source tempo installs. So we'll give more in the next community meeting. We'll have more data. We'll give more details. With the 1.3 release, we'll have a lot of details about the costs of this at different breakpoints, at different ingestion breakpoints, and we'll have a lot more data. Right now we don't have good data, but we kind of know the path we want to take. And so 1.3 will have that, as well as some other bug fixes and some other improvements. I did want to also highlight a recent change if you're kind of like pulling from main right now. We do have a breaking change, which is that we re-vendored OTel to get up to date, and they changed their default port. And we just went ahead and changed our default port along with it. Their old default port was in there's like, official port ranges, right? And there's a range that's like, don't ever make a real port here because the kernel is going to use this for outgoing requests. And they chose one in that range for unknown reasons, 55680. And then they moved it to 4317. So 4317 is the current default standard OTel proto port, gRPC, and so we have moved to it as well. Just a heads up, if you just pull main or when we cut 1.3, if you are using that, you might see your trace pipeline break until you fix this or reconfigure. Cool. And then we had some the compaction fix we mentioned. We also did some memory improvements. It kind of has helped some, but it's not totally fixed out on our side. And I know others are having issues with compaction memory for extremely large traces as well. And so we'll continue to kind of look at this. Marty's also going to talk about some options for improving, or maybe not improving, but changing our backend trace format and how that might impact kind of compactor memory. He'll talk about that in a second here. That's kind of all I got for 1.3. But yeah, should be coming around January. If there's any questions about that, or we do have a milestone set up. I should probably link that with the things we want in 1.3. It might be a little tight. We might push some stuff to 1.4. Again, the holidays just kind of they make 3 months disappear basically, way faster than normal. Let me get the milestone linked at least. Okay. Next, while I kind of get into that together, Kunrad had, oh, thanks. This guy, man, I swear. 1.3 for me, the big one is, there's like 6 or 7 things on here. The one I really want to do is, what is it? The unhealthy compactors do not leave the ring after rollout. I know some people are having issues with this. We have only seen this like once, and I don't know what the difference in environment is that's causing this. We just don't understand. So what we'd like to do is move to a new ring, a new implementation of the ring that lets us establish a kind of timeout period on the compactor. So you can configure if you don't see a compactor for 5 minutes, just forget it, like automatically kind of thing. So we're still not sure why this is happening. And 1.3 almost certainly won't fix the root cause, but we can at least provide options to configure an automatic forget timeout period, so you don't have to do this manually or go about it some other manner. If we were seeing this internally all the time, we'd have more cases where we could kind of reproduce and hopefully find it ourselves, but we're really struggling to reproduce it for some reason. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's anything anybody really wants. Feel free to talk about it here or add us in Slack or whatever. If you want us to prioritize something, we can try to fit something into 1.3. Kunrad, why don't you take the next thing here, which I think we're going to talk about kind of our design process and maybe how we want to open that up a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So with the Tempo Squad, we were thinking about opening up the design process a bit. So we created a lot of design docs internally right now as we develop new features. But kind of the downside of this is that these design docs are like internal to Grafana Labs, but it doesn't really have to be internal if it's only about Tempo. So we're kind of looking for a process or a way to just make them public first, be able to invite people from the community to comment on them, get suggestions, and also allow just anyone to create a proposal or a design doc, so that we can kind of like have a more collaborative approach on these big features. So we're right now thinking about the process. So expect to see like something posted soon, like a PR maybe, to set up a process or something. And we'll probably post something in Slack. But yeah, the goal would be to be able to share these design docs in public before we start implementing these. Not sure if there's anything else. Yeah, and I think the next point will be one of those features that we want to write a design doc for. So expect to see one like in the next weeks.
Cool. Yeah, Mario's going to talk a little bit about our next feature, and I think this is one of the first ones we want to really provide a public design for people to comment on, and just so others can give input who are using Tempo, who might have interest in the feature, who want to kind of have some input on how it goes. And Mario is now queuing up what we're talking about, so go ahead.
Yeah, we've prepared a small presentation. I promise it will be short. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so we want to present something that we're working on, which is service-side metrics. At least that is the internal name so far. And what we want to do is we're basing these of existing features of the agent. So our intention is move some of these features from the agent, the Grafana agent, to Tempo. So this is the now. Right now we have different processes in the agent, which is our tracing pipeline, in which we are able to process traces and extract data from them, from the tracing metadata. And we can build different things like metrics, red metrics, and service graphs, which is something I will mention shortly. And the future is, why don't we move these features to Tempo so we can generate them server-side? So why are we doing this? Well, for one, not everyone is using the Grafana agent. So this is very powerful for supporting non-agent deployments. There are 1,000 ways of ingesting traces, and you don't even have to run a tracing pipeline. Like, it's not a mandatory component. So yeah, moving these features to Tempo would allow us to support non-agent deployments. Also, we can improve efficiency. So the fact that we currently run these features on the agent has a few well, I was going to say caveat, but that won't be the word. Like, we could improve performance since if it resides in Tempo, we can make more improvements in, I don't know, for instance, we could evaluate or forward a smaller version of a trace, so they only contain the data that we want to contain. Also, most of these features rely on load balancing across different agent instances, and this is not a trivial task and adds significant overhead. That is something that could be more easily managed if we do them in Tempo. And finally, we hope them to be easier to operate, since now you only need one component to have both things. So Tempo proper and these extra features instead of two, which would be Tempo and the Grafana agent. So what are we targeting? As I mentioned earlier, we're targeting two of the features that we currently have in the agent, which are service graphs and spam matrix. So the first one, the one on the left, is service graphs, which are visual representation of the interrelationship between various services. It works by inspecting spans and looking for the tag span kind, so it can match client and server spans. And with that, generate metrics that represent edges between nodes in a graph. And the other one is span metrics, which basically generate metrics from your tracing data automatically. Essentially generates request error duration, so red metrics out of this. So you get like auto instrumentation out of your trace data. Both features are generated in the ingestion path. So yeah, the Grafana agent or Tempo in the future will process traces and generate these data in form of Prometheus metrics. We have already some early thoughts. Conrad, you want to go over them?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mario. Yeah, we were already thinking about an architecture in Tempo to support this, since this is like a whole new like functionality we are adding to Tempo. So far, Tempo was ingesting traces, and then you can query and search them. But this would be a feature in which we ingest traces and then extract metrics to push them somewhere else. So we were considering a couple of options. Including like, we could integrate this into the distributor or maybe the ingester. But what we feel most comfortable with right now is to add a separate component, which is dedicated to generating these metrics. So this would be an optional component that you would run if you want to have these metrics. And what would happen is the distributor would, receive all the traces as normal, and it would write to two destinations. It will write to the ingester to store traces in the backend, and it will also write to the metrics generator component. Like, we still have to figure out a good name for that, so that this component can generate the metrics. Yeah, and this has like a couple of advantages. A separate component means it can be optional. You can just like leave it out if you don't want it. If this component explodes for some reason, like there's like a spike in CPU usage or memory usage, it doesn't impact the rest of the ingest path. So that's kind of why we are like nudging towards this architecture. Yeah, and basically we're planning to write like a more detailed design document and publish it on GitHub as well, so that people can see how we would set this up. Like, there are a lot of details about, for instance, running with multiple replicas. Can we run multiple instances of this component? How will we shard requests between them? And like, yeah, there's just a lot of details there. I don't think, yeah, I mean, it's like the most important part of the architecture. And okay, I think we have like one final slide is the timing. Yeah, so we will be working on this like now. So expect to see a lot of like improvement, like a lot of new things in the coming months. It's probably not going to be included in 1.3, but for the next release, like, yeah, I mean, we'll see. And we also want to run this in Grafana Cloud as well, but it's kind of like early days right now, so we can't really give a timeline. Yeah.
Cool. So, right, I think for us, providing it on the back end is really powerful. We really kind of want to offer these features natively in Grafana Cloud. That was one of the big drivers. And then, like they said, the efficiency is far better for the span metrics. There's not a huge difference because you're just generating like metrics per span. It's pretty straightforward, but the difference in service graphs is pretty amazing because you have to load balance service graphs and you have to like aggregate traces in one spot. It's kind of like tail-based sampling in that way. So doing that on our side will just open that up for a lot of people. And then also for other people who are running, Tempo OSS, the ability to kind of generate these metrics if you want them server side, I think would be more attractive than putting them in, like in the agents. So we're pretty excited about those features. And we also see opportunity to expand that, right? So any other kind of like analytics or like automated kind of metrics we could generate from spans or trace data could kind of go in this place.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, another thing, I'm not sure if we mentioned yeah, another extra thing that we're looking forward to work on is cardinality is not in the best place in the agent right now. Like it can be too high if the cardinality in the traces themselves are high. And we've had like experience with cardinality problems internally, especially with the spam metric. So that is something that we will be working on and yeah, working to improve.
Cool. Cool. So I really doubt that would be in 1.3. I don't really see any chance there would be that in OSS 1.3, but I don't know, maybe in the coming releases 1.4 or something, 1.5. And we'll have, of course, more information in the community calls and in change logs and blog posts and documentation and everything. So we should continue to hear information about that and keep you all up to date. And use and you can use those features. Also, like we said, this will be in a proposal, like PR'd to the repo. We'll highlight that in Slack and other places. If you are using Tempo and you have interest in this, please jump in there. Please comment about how you feel about the design, how you feel about the feature set. Like this is the opportunity for us to kind of, as a community, agree on what we want this to do and what we can like all use. So please, please feel free to comment and give us feedback and help us out, make something we can all use. Cool. Okay. Kind of next on the list, I really wanted Marty to chat about some of his work he's been doing lately. He's looking at, so like I said, the cost of this search, we're still not sure, but we're already working on reducing the cost by some of Marty's work, which is looking at iterating our backend format, like how we're storing these traces to more efficiently search them. So Marty, why don't you chat about that a little bit?
Yeah. So our current block format is really, I guess, compressed pages of OpenTelemetry line protocol protobuf, right? And so that becomes a cost driver, like for unpacking this, deserializing it, because in order to inspect a lot of it, like you kind of like the general libraries are to, unmarshal like the entire trace. And so we've kind of already started tinkering with or exploring the use of flat buffers. So that's a format that's requires no marshaling. You can just load the bytes into memory and it's able to be read. So we are currently using that in our ingester search. So kind of what we're doing is exploring using that in the block format on the back end. And so that's also not something we'd have in 1.3. It would be later on. And it's not, it has pros and cons, so it's not like a clear, win. So where kind of the approach we would go is this would be configurable and different workloads or different use cases maybe would benefit from it differently because you're kind of trading, read time performance for write time performance. So they are more intense to create than the protocol buffers. So kind of like, if you're doing heavy search or reads, then it might be better. So a search is like a big part of this. So we want, especially for this serverless approach that we're doing, which is kind of like large parallelization, brute force, kind of like very simple backend block format. But then this go really wide with the search. Unmarshaling is a big part of that. So we think we could bring that down and that would be really great there. It would have some benefits like on other parts where we're seeing like this compactor, compacting these things together. So there's a lot less work that needs to be done in order to bring different trace segments together. And so I think, that's something that we'll keep exploring. And I think there are definitely some good things there. Yeah, so the timing on that would be later. Yeah, I think, I don't really have any numbers. I mean, just general rule of thumb might be something like, I think it's like 6 times faster to read, but it's like also like 1.5 or double in size. So it's like increasing storage costs, but it's a lot faster to process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the current numbers. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I kind of see going forward, we don't have, huge detail here, but we see this flat buffer as an iteration on the kind of improving the back end. Like we're not really changing anything to the basic way we write traces to the back end, and we're improving the method in which we can, parse them and search them. And so improving the efficiency there. After that, I think we're going to kind of regroup as a team and look at like a V2 storage format. Columnar comes up over and over again. You even have a engineer, Ananya, who's not on this call, but he's been kind of like having some fun this week. We have a hackathon week, so he's been having some fun with some columnar storage formats. Maybe some kind of dynamic index. We just don't know. So we're going to probably do this flat buffer iteration for improved search performance, and then regroup as a team and talk about what would the next step look like for better searching and better kind of like metrics generation as well. So I see this as an iterative step, just like taking the exact same write and read path and just changing the format. And then the next steps we expect to be kind of more extreme. And we're going to be talking about that as in the coming months after we lock down flat buffer. Cool. I think that's kind of what we have. So that's about half of the old meeting here. If anybody has any questions or comments or whatever, you're welcome to. Oh, I think there was actually one in chat, right? Let me address that before I go any forward. Any plans to enable service graph based on the current agent solution at the Grafana Cloud? So that does exist. Mario, do you have any details on that?
Yeah, so there is already like an early version of the UI. You can check how to enable it. It's essentially a feature toggle on Grafana. But as for officially rolling it out to Grafana Cloud, we were looking to fit in some improvements since we think the UI is still a bit rough. So I think in the coming month or so, we're looking to make the official rollout in the hosted Grafana in Grafana Cloud.
Right, so that will be offered, and you'll just write to a Cortex endpoint, or the Cloud Prometheus endpoint. You don't even really have to do that. You can use in your hosted Grafana any Prometheus data source. It could be the hosted one, it could be one you have local. It's up to you, really. And then you can write the agent metrics, the service graph metrics there, and you could use it. But it's a little bit of a science experiment to set up. We kind of recognize that, and that's why we're trying to move some of this to the back end.
Yeah, I'm already using a POC, internal Grafana tempo, and it's great right now. It really helps you show up the entire connection of the service. So that was looking for the Grafana Cloud in the future.
Okay. So yeah, it should be shortly. I mean, I don't even think we can turn this on yet. Is the version of Grafana there? I think we just need to do a little bit more iteration on our side. But we would be glad to enable this early once we feel a little bit more confident about the UI, if you're interested in that feature.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, holiday wishes, silly hats?
I would just express enthusiasm about what y'all are doing with the metrics. That's definitely something that we've been thinking a lot about, like deriving metrics from trace data. And so it's cool to see what you're doing there.
Cool. Thanks. Like I said, this will be up, so please jump in there. If this is an opportunity to give us feedback on the kinds of things you want to generate, and if we can do more, of course we will. And we expect there to be a lot of kind of value here. We do kind of long-term have this idea of like a query language, and you're going to be generating metrics and analytics out of that query language. But even then, the cost of that versus pre-generating metrics is enormous. So we will probably always do some kind of like pre-generated canned metrics where it makes sense. Thanks. Cool. Well, it was good community call. If nothing else, appreciate everyone showing up, and thank you for your time.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for the great work.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate that. Have a great break, and we will see you all sometime next year.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.